Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. So let me begin this morning with the beginning of a sefer called the Sefer Kuzari. The Kuzari is a very, very important sefer, which really highlights some of the most important fundamentals of our faith. What's especially fascinating about the Kuzari, written by Rabbi Halevi, approximately the year 1140, is the fact that it's set up as a dialogue. It's a dialogue between, Rabbi Halevi describes a dialogue between himself and the Melech HaKuzar, the king of the Kuzari. And the Kuzaris were a group who famously are said to have converted to Judaism. And the dialogue itself is the king trying to discover and understand the correct path in life, to understand, if you like, the truth in terms of the true path in life, the true ideals, and what is the true faith, the true religion. That's what he was trying to discover. And it shows, and the book begins with his encounters with various different representatives, very different ideas. But there's a point that's highlighted at the very beginning. And it says that the king of the Khuzars had a dream. And in that dream, he was told multiple times, it seemed to be a recurring dream. This king was told, the king who wasn't Jewish was told that Kavanos Choretsuya Eitzal Habore, your intention is good with the Creator, but your actions are not correct. Your actions are not right. You need to search more to work out what the right way to live, the right way to behave in life is. But what's interesting is that he was commanded, and the way Rabbi Halevi, just read you a few lines from the Sefer. It says like this: when the king of the Khuzar saw in his dream that his intention was correct, with regards to with Hashem, but his action wasn't pleasing. So he was told by this angel who appeared to him in this dream to seek out for himself. He was a truth seeker. He wanted to know what the right way to behave was, and he was instructed by the angel, go look and go search for it yourself. And therefore, the whole Sefer is his investigation as to try and discover and try and investigate and work through the basics of Emunah, of faith. The question is asked on a commentary that I have on the Kuzari by Rabbi Mordechai Neugeschal. He asked the following question. He says, if already this angel is appearing to this king in a dream, so why doesn't he just tell him the right way to behave as well? If already he is privileged to have this divine communication, why does he have to say to him, go look and go and investigate it for yourself? And he suggests that maybe the idea was that this malach the angel wanted to teach this king a fundamental idea, and that is, you can never achieve the truth. You can never arrive at a true result without effort involved yourself. If you want to work on something, if you want to get to a goal that is meaningful, that is worthwhile, it takes work. And in that sense, there is no greater example of this than Emunah itself, than what faith is. And he quotes a beautiful pasuk in Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu says like this: "Shoitadu b'chutzos Yerushalayim." He says, "Wander through the streets of Yerushalayim, and see now and understand. And seek out in its streets, if you can find a person, is there anyone who performs justice? Anyone who seeks out truth, who seeks out emunah, seeks out faith. And the great figures of our history, the Baalei Hamussar, those who involve themselves with what it means to live an ethical and moral life, they say like this. Why does the Pasuk use that phrase, mevakesh emunah? Because a person needs to seek emunah, needs to discover and work on emunah in order to achieve it. They say, he brings a story about the Vilna Gaon. And the Vilna Gaon was said to have refused. He had incredible and divine insights, perhaps even Ruach HaKodesh, but he refused to accept the secrets of the Torah being taught to him by direct communication from an angel, because he wanted to work on himself. He wanted to discover it himself. When the Jewish people sin after the golden calf, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Lech Reid, he's there on the mountain. He's at the pinnacle. He's at 40 days and 40 nights. He's achieved so much. He's spent those days and nights on the top of the mountain with Hashem himself. And Hashem says to Moshe, Lech reid, go down, ki shichei samcha, because your people have spoilt things. They've ruined their way. They've worshipped the golden calf. Soru maher. They've turned away very quickly min haderech asher tzivisim, from the way that I commanded them. Chaim Shmulevitz asked the famous question, how could they turn away so fast? How could they fall so fast from such a height, from being and receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai? How could it be soru maher? They've turned so fast. And he says like this, he says, Kivan shehigiu maher, since they arrived so quickly, the elevation, the time that it took from leaving Mitzrayim, those 7 weeks that it takes from leaving Mitzrayim until receiving the Torah, was like a rocket ship. They were shooting straight up from the lowest level to the highest. Since they arrived so quickly, so too, lachein, therefore, soru maher, there was always a risk that they could turn away so quickly as well. Because if you achieve something with incredible speed, and it's something just in a few minutes or in a short period of time, it's also the risk there lies as well, that it's possible to lose it. And what we learn from here is that Emunah is a lifetime's work. There are no shortcuts. There are no easy pathways towards Emunah. There's no one size fits all. There's no simple answers in terms of how one approaches Emunah. What one needs to look for in life and be focused on, if you like, the direction, the point that one needs to have always in mind is that Emunah is a constant process. It's a constant sense of working on oneself. Just like that whole sefer, the whole kuzari, the whole sefer is built on an investigation into discovering Emunah, into working through and working out what Emunah is. And in this sense, let's just consider a few more lines from Rav Shlomo Wolbe, who we've introduced on other weeks, who in Sefer Alei Shur, who explains and goes through the essence of what Emunah is. And he says like this, he says, K'mo kol koach mikochas hanefesh. He says, like any quality, any trait, any strength that the soul has, ma'ora gam koach emunah tziyurim belev. He says the strength of faith is able to awaken the concept of being able to conjure up images in one's head, being able to translate words into a vision, if you like, in the mind, in the sense of understanding and picturing something. And he says, the Rambam writes in Morin Nevuchim, his Guide for the Perplexed, the following words. He says, Da atah hama'ayin, know you who's investigating this. Ki ha'emona eina inyan hanema b'peh. We spoke about this last time. Faith is not something that is just pronounced. People often say, I believe, I don't believe. That's not what faith is. We explained that there is more and more evidence that human beings are themselves hardwired to believe in something, right? That's the famous phrase, there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. People who are in a corner believe, they want to believe. There's a human drive to believe in something. I explained last time, all you have to do is look on the terraces on a football, in a football stadium, and you'll see that everyone has faith, right? There's this human drive to hold on to faith in something, belief. That's not what we mean. The Rambam says that faith is not just saying, I believe. He says, what is faith? Faith is something that a person conjures up within their soul, that he's able to believe it, that it is as true as the image, as the idea, as the feeling that he's able to picture in front of his mind. And he says like this, says Rav Wolbe explaining this Rambam. He says, the more that we are able to, if you like, translate into reality, into a clear idea, a clear picture in our heads, things which bring home to us the truth of the Torah and the characteristics of Hashem, that strengthens our faith. He says, we can even say, that really conjuring up things in our minds, the ideas of our faith itself, making them real in our minds, that itself is the key to faith. And he explains that in more detail, which hopefully we'll have a chance to understand in more detail on another session. He says like this, that we know that sometimes when it comes to the reverse, if you consider it from the reverse position, sometimes if a person has a negative thought, what we call hirure avera, that sometimes can be worse than the sin itself, because the fact is the mind, the conscious mind is so powerful, is that when a person has a particular image, a particular direction in their mind to do the wrong thing, that can even be stronger to a person, have more of an effect on a person than the action itself. That can drive a person to insanity almost. He says, so too is it when you have a matter, an idea of kedusha, of holiness. He asks us to think, as an example of this, about the chut shel tcheles in the tzitzis, the blue thread that was on the tzitzis, which we say is meant to remind us of the sea reminds us of the sky, and the sky is similar to the kisei hakovod, to the heavenly throne. The visual act of looking at the tzitzis drives home that idea in our minds as to the power of our faith. It reminds us of the kisei hakovod itself. In terms of where this can really have an impact, of course, it is directly relevant, and it speaks to us in terms of the events that were in the parashas that we are reading at the moment. When you think about the parsha, this week's parsha, for example, and next week's parsha, you talk about parshas b'shalach, kriyas yamsuf, you talk about Ma'amad Har Sinai. Our task and our role is to try and picture within our minds almost the Jewish people leaving Mitzrayim, picture them crossing over the Yam Suf, the sea itself. And especially when it comes to the idea of Ma'amad Har Sinai, which hopefully we'll talk more about next week and what that means to us in terms of faith, the idea is to imagine and picture ourselves as if we're actually standing at that mountain, almost as we do on Seder night. It's a major tool in our Emunah toolbox to bring these ideas to life by visualizing in some way what that experience must have been like for every member of the Bnei Yisrael. But to conclude today, and we'll talk more about that in Mitzvah Hashem next time, but what I would like to conclude today with is just a very brief story from the life of Rabbi Aryeh Levine, which I think is so powerful in terms of developing and bringing home this idea of what it means to work on Emunah through a lifetime. Rabbi Aryeh Levine, that was known as the Tzaddik of Yerushalayim. If you haven't read Simcha Raz's book on the lifetime of Aryeh Levine, it's absolutely essential reading. It's called A Tzaddik in Our Time. Here's the book, A Tzaddik in Our Time, Rabbi Aryeh Levine. In that book, it describes how Rabbi Aryeh Levine was a Baal Chesed extraordinaire. He was someone who would do anything and everything to give comfort to the bereaved. He would live through some of the most turbulent times in the history of Israel, the War of Independence, and many other episodes as well. He would go into the prisons. He would comfort so many different people. In his last will and testament, he asked that the following words be inscribed on his kever. It's an incredible thing. You can go and see it. You can go and see his kever, which I think is on Har. It's either on Har Menuchos or Har Hazeisim, and it is Har Hazeisim. And he asked the following words should be written on his kever. Ani mevakesh, I ask, I request, mikol mi sheyavoy lihishtatech al kivri. Anyone who comes to prostrate themselves and then pray to daven on my grave, sheyoma b'peh mole. He should say the following words with a full voice. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shalema. I believe with perfect faith. Shetiyah tchias hamesim, that there will be a resurrection or revival of the dead. Be'eis shetala ratzon me'eis habori yisborach, when the will of Hashem decrees it so. V'yisala zichur adon nitzach nitzachim. Blessed be his name and exalted his remembrance forever and ever. That's what he wanted on his kever. Rabbi Levine knew that he would not be able, once he passed away, to comfort people anymore, which he had spent a life. He devoted his entire life for giving chizuk to others. Once he passed away, he would never be able to give that chizuk to anyone else. And he also knew that when people tend to visit a Beis HaChaim, a cemetery, they can often grow a sense of melancholy, can sometimes accompany them. The idea that it is Beis Moed L'Kol Chai, everyone has a limited time on this earth. what he did in this incredible way, his incredible way, was even after he had passed away, he was still able to give hope, to give courage to others, even after his passing. Anyone who would come to his kever would say these words and provide themselves with a form of chizuk. And what it also demonstrated, I think, was the idea that that sense of ani ma'amin, I believe, was a lifetime's work and even beyond. So that someone who lived a life of such strong emunah and gave those messages of chizuk and emunah to everyone he came into contact with, would even be able to continue that message of emunah even after he passed away. Surely an incredible example to us, a chizuk for us in times that are difficult in terms of emunah. And hopefully giving us the encouragement to know that emunah itself is a lifetime's work. Every moment, every little step we take is another step in the right direction to keeping ourselves strong. And with that, as we go into the week which is, and 2 weeks really, in terms which are incredibly powerful and strong in terms of emunah, week of Parshas Beshalach, with the splitting of the sea, Kriyas Yamsuf, leading into after that, of course, Parshas Yisro with Matan Torah. May we all merit to have strong emunah during the coming week. I wish you all a good week, and thank you all very, very much for joining.
Shkoyach to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you.
Thank you for the chizuk. We need it.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good week.
Thank you, Leo, for joining us.
What is it?
Yeah.
And that's if I say you now.